The Christchurch mosque attacks have been front and centre of what's been a jam-packed day for the Prime Minister at the United Nations. Jacinda Ardern talked gun control with the US President Donald Trump in their first official sit-down and announced the sign-up of dozens of new countries in the Christchurch Call. Our Deputy Political Editor, Craig McCulloch, is in New York.
An official sit-down with America's most powerful man and a presidential thumbs up from Donald Trump.
I have to say I don't tend to do photos with thumbs ups as a general rule of thumb, but it was a positive and constructive meeting.
Jacinda Ardern speaking after her first formal talks with the US President near the United Nations HQ. Media were barred from attending the top of the meeting, with just a few photos of the encounter publicly released. Not much detail on most of the discussion either, with just one big revelation. Mr. Trump, unprompted, inquired about New Zealand's gun buyback.
I sensed an interest. I mean, obviously, we were able to move very quickly and with consensus. I think that obviously stood out to the world.
And to Mr. Trump too. A curious question given the United States' pervasive pro-gun culture and the President's historically fluid position on firearms.
I certainly wouldn't want to predetermine that means anything particular for the United States other than an interest in what we did.
Among the other topics of conversation, the prospect for a free trade deal, tourism and, yes, Kiwi golfing legend Sir Bob Charles. But one big subject not on the agenda was the Christchurch Call, with the US still holding out from joining the pledge to eliminate terrorist content online.
Regardless of whether or not they've formally signed up or not, actually we've had a really good level of participation and support from the US.
The Christchurch Call also a major focus for Ms Ardern at the UN today, hosting a special meeting with government leaders and tech executives to report progress since its debut in May. And while the US hasn't jumped on board, 31 other countries have, bringing the total number of nations to 48. In another high-profile sit-down, Ms Ardern met the leader of one of the Call's founding signatories, the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Jacinda, thank you very much for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Absolutely wonderful.
Mr Johnson's recent ascension means he wasn't the one who signed the paper in May, but he reaffirmed the country's commitment. The social media giants also showing up in force, with top bosses attending, including those from Microsoft, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook.
This was a horrific attack, and the fact that the online tools which we build to bring people together were used to spread violent extremism is something that is horrible for all of us.
Not quite an apology from Facebook's 2IC Sheryl Sandberg, but an expression of regret and an admission the online platforms need to improve.
We can't wait until a moment like this happens again. We have to do the hard work now to establish the systems and the protocols and the cooperation, and that's what today is about.
The tech companies announcing a set of clear guidelines on what to do and who to contact in the event of another attack like in Christchurch. The group also unveiling plans to set up an independent organisation with its own dedicated staff and executive director, specifically focused on the pledge's aims. The Prime Minister calls it a substantial and meaningful commitment.
So far, the engagement has been excellent.
The opposition had dismissed the call as a feel-good PR exercise. Ms Ardern will be hoping today's announcements done enough to put that to rest. From New York for Checkpoint, Craig McCulloch.